force for positive change. No, we're not talking about superheroes. This is investing. On today's episode of Millstone River Live, we talk about investing with impact. Adam, ESG, that's what we're talking about. It means putting your money where your heart is. It means having more transparency about the types of companies, not just the industries, but the types of companies we're investing in, and adhering to the principles and values that we consider most important in those decisions.
It's something that we hear a lot about being in the industry, but more and more, I think, everything from large institutional investors to our average client are starting to hear about it, think about it, and are excited about at least having a discussion as to how you can, invest with an impact.
So let's make sure everybody knows what it is we're talking about. So we're going to refer to this as ESG. It's the acronym that was adopted by the United Nations, and it stands for Environment, Social, and Governance. And the idea there is that in these three major areas, the United Nations wanted to have these issues incorporated into investment analysis and then the ultimate decision-making process that investment clients and portfolio managers will use when thinking about where to put money. So let's make sure that we know what we mean. Environment is clean technology. It means having an eye on climate change, carbon emissions, the construction of green buildings and everything that goes into that. Sustainable natural resources. So it means alternative energy sources, wind, solar, that sort of thing. The S is for social. This is about workplace safety, labor relations, workplace benefits for all, no discrimination based on gender or race or any other criteria, community development, and human rights. And I think if you asked the average person on the street if they had the choice to invest their money with companies that paid close attention to these issues and worked towards positive change or not, study says most people would say yes, right? They want to incorporate that if they can.
I think that's overwhelmingly the response.
Yeah. And then G is for governance, and this refers to executive compensation, board diversity, anti-corruption policies, and independence of board members. So basically, in a nutshell, it's making sure that the CEO and top management of a company are not making thousands and thousands and thousands times the salary of the average employee, because we know from history that that doesn't make for a good company, a well-run company. It seeks companies that have diversity in their boards. That means men and women. It means different races, different ages, different backgrounds, and making sure that those board members are also independent, that they're there to do the job of a board member and not just be a yes man or a yes woman to whoever's at the head of the table, right? So in a sense, the United Nations kind of took this on in an effort to focus attention on 6 big areas and then a lot of sub areas. But the big areas are the climate change. That's the one I think most people associate with ESG investing. Tobacco, because we know that whatever angle you look at tobacco, whether it's health, public health, or economic impact, tobacco has a big impact on society at large. Human rights, transparency, anti-corruption. These are the themes that the United Nations wanted to make sure was incorporated into these principles. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about how we got here.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think that's an excellent description of where we are today in terms of sustainable investing. However, it took some time to get there. It didn't start that way. We would say that this movement in which investors started to recognize that as especially owners of stock, that as part owners of the company, they have the ability to communicate to management as to what they were looking to promote and sometimes exclude. as part of their business practices. And there was the first mutual fund to do that was in 1971. And what they did is they decided as part of their investment policy statement that they were going to exclude manufacturers of weaponry from the portfolio, essentially becoming the first sustainable investing mutual fund. From there, other large investors started to follow suit and started to think about those things. And kind of the next evolution was, as Matt alluded to, a lot of investors started to exclude manufacturers of tobacco products as part of their investments or portfolio, but also some social issues. And the other big one was that companies that had operations in apartheid-era South Africa started to become part of the mandate that was excluded. Sort of move forward a couple decades, and Matt highlighted that the United Nations started to get involved. That was back in 2004 when they basically developed a report that gave guidelines and recommendations on how to better integrate environmental, social, and corporate governance issues. And technology has also made this a lot more powerful, both in transparency, but also at the moment there's providers that provide ratings based off of some of these criteria for over 7,500 companies. And when you include the combined equity and fixed income securities, over 650,000. So, it started with one particular mutual fund communicating that there was an industry that they didn't want to be a part of. And now it's evolved to where we are today.
So Adam, that sounds pretty good. Now, how does an investor incorporate that? Or what does that look like in terms of actual investments?
Sure. I would break that down into three themes. The first is just integration. So it involves, a systematic use of, as part of the investment analysis, that you start to make this a main consideration, just as much as what the intrinsic value of a stock is, but also what are they doing along these criteria. So it's just mainly that it's going to be on top of their minds. The other way that you can do this is involves with screening. This is very similar to the exclusion of tobacco companies or weapons manufacturers. So you can have certain principles that you don't want to see part of the portfolio. But you can also have positive screens as well. Those would be sort of best in class. It could be that you highlight when someone has a low environmental impact as something that you want to see in general for your investments. And then the third way we would call is thematic. This is when you are trying to make an impact by very specifically investing in some type of sustainability themed investment, or it could be impact or community investing. And those three things are different ways in which the investors are trying to promote change. And from our opinion, it works. There's been countless examples recently where shareholder engagement has been the driver of some significant corporate policy changes. And Matt, why don't you give me some examples of when an ESG themed investor was able to make meaningful changes in the corporation?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is probably one of the more important considerations for any investor that's thinking about whether they want this concept of ESG to be part of their investment decision-making. And the reason is because what this does is it creates a dialogue with management of these companies that probably wouldn't otherwise happen. And then that dialogue with management leads to compelling actions or changes on behalf of those companies to do good or to make improvement. So in researching for today, you and I came up with a few examples just within the last 5 years or so. One example is that an investment firm in 2015 engaged with the board of directors from Lowe's, the home improvement chain. They wanted them to stop selling a particular pesticide that had been attributed with causing harm to the bee population. And they created this shareholder proposal that was sent to the board of directors. Without getting into too much of the detail here, Lowe's did subsequently take this up. They agreed that they would, after studying this particular proposal, that they would stop selling this product. And so the investment firm withdrew its shareholder proposal. And
what happened as even an after effect of their initiative?
Yeah, so I think this is the most interesting thing of the story. So not only did Lowe's stop selling this particular product, which was determined to be causing harm to the environment and to wildlife and to the ripple effect that may cause, but then Home Depot, which was never even presented such a shareholder proposal, saw this and decided they too would stop selling that same harmful product. And so they voluntarily just followed suit and decided we're not going to sell it either. And that's pretty cool. The same year, there were shareholder proposals sent to Apple and then subsequently to eBay and Amazon. We all know these are huge companies. They employ tens of thousands of people around the world even. And what they were looking for here was for these companies to disclose the results of their gender pay equity issues. So the thinking that women perhaps were being paid less for the same jobs men were being paid for, and that the proposal that was sent out to each of these companies' boards said, we believe that you know the data and we want to see it. And the most impressive and swiftest result of that was at their next annual meeting, Tim Cook proposed that, I shouldn't say proposed, I should say he announced actually.
Exactly.
That Apple was now committed to closing that pay gap, and he listed out the steps that they were going to take to do it. eBay and Amazon followed suit. These are huge employers that made significant change to close the gap between men and women for doing the same job. One more. How about one more example? In 2016, Nordstrom, the department store, reported that nearly half of the products sold in its stores were manufactured in factories that had history of human rights issues and all of the risks that go with that. They made a decision to take action, and they put controls in place to very carefully monitor the facilities that they were going to engage to manufacture the products that were sold in their stores, so you could shop in their stores knowing that the products you were going to buy were not made in these types of factories. And if you're an investor in that company, you can do so knowing that they have, for the good, altered their manufacturing processes.
So, that's exactly what I think investors that make this a priority want to hear. They know that, in fact, when you have a voice and also some power in being part owner of a company, you can start to shape the way that management acts and actually see the impact of where your dollars are going, where they're being allocated to, I should say.
Yeah. So anyway, the idea of this topic was really just to introduce the concept for the benefit of people who may not be intimately familiar or who may even want to consider their own portfolios. We're all likely aware about how the specific investments in our portfolio relate to our goals, especially financial goals. But I don't know that everyone knows that those investment decisions can also reflect personal values, right? And so that's the whole idea about this concept.
I would agree. I would also add that there's been a variety of recent studies, including the United Nations, that shows when companies listen to investors and they try to make the world a better place, that it generally is a good business decision. Some of the companies that you just highlighted, Matt, are some of the largest companies in the world, and they've continued to be successful, even considering some of the initiatives that different investors have put forth in front of them.
Yeah. So anyway, as we kind of wrap up here, we wanted to make sure that people were aware that ESG as a theme exists. It can be, as we said at the start, a force for positive change, and it could allow you to put your money where your heart is. So on behalf of Adam Zielinski, this is Matt Siegel. Millstone River Live is the official podcast of Millstone River Wealth Management. More information can be found online at millstone-river.com. And we encourage you to share this recording with those you feel may be interested. We thank you for joining us. This is for information purposes only and is not a recommendation. Investing in the stock market involves gains and losses and may not be suitable for all investors. The investment's socially responsible focus may limit the investment options available to the investment and may result in returns lower than those from investments not subject to such investment considerations.